Every single entrepreneur starts with that spark, right? That brilliant idea that you just know can change the world, or at least a tiny piece of it. But here's the thing. There's a massive gap between a great idea and a great business. So today, we're going to talk about the bridge that gets you from one side to the other. And that bridge is called marketing research. So, you've got one, right? A great business idea. That aha moment. The one you are absolutely convinced is a home run. I bet it's exciting, it feels like it has endless potential, and yeah, it's probably keeping you up at night, isn't it? But, and this is a million-dollar question, isn't it? How do you really know if it's a great business? I mean, how do you go from just thinking it's great to actually knowing it's going to work? You have to test your assumptions before you go all in, before you bet your time, your money, your whole future on it. Well, the answer isn't just crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. It's a process, a system. See, it's not about guessing, it's about listening. Marketing research is basically this amazing toolkit that helps you figure out your real opportunity, collect actual information from the real world, and then make smart decisions that will, seriously boost your chances of success. All right, let's get into it. Here's what we're covering today. First, we'll talk about solving the big unknown. Then, why you should start with secondary data before getting to primary data. We'll compare interviews and focus groups. And finally, look at some other powerful research tools you can use. Okay, Section 1, Solving the Big Unknown. This is all about laying the foundation. So, first things first. Before you can solve anything, you really need to get your head around the two main types of information out there. Think of them as the two pillars for all your research. So, you've got two flavors of data. First is secondary data. This is all the stuff that's already out there just waiting for you. We're talking market reports, government stats, articles about your competitors. Basically, someone else did the hard work of collecting it. Then you've got primary data. This is the new stuff. It's information you go out and gather yourself for your specific project. Next up, number 2, start with secondary data. This really is the smart first step. I know it's super tempting to just run out and start talking to potential customers, but trust me, the smartest founders, they always start with what's already out there. And this is basically rule number 1. Seriously, write this down. Always look at secondary data before you even think about collecting your own primary data. Why? Well, it's simple. It's way faster, it's a heck of a lot cheaper, and it stops you from wasting a ton of time and money rediscovering stuff people already figured out. Plus, it helps you ask much, much smarter questions later on. All right, Section 3. Now it's time for primary data, which is all about getting specific answers. So once you've squeezed every last drop of insight out of the existing data, you're probably going to have some very specific questions left over, questions that only apply to your idea. And that's your cue to switch gears and start collecting your own data. And one of the absolute best ways to do this is with something called a depth interview. Now, don't think of this as just a simple Q&A session. It's not. It's a deep one-on-one conversation where you get to explore a potential customer's world. You're trying to find out what really makes them tick, their problems, their motivations. This is how you capture what we call the voice of the customer. Moving on to Section 4, interviews versus focus groups. It's all about choosing the right tool for the job. See, you've got options here. 2 of the most common are those one-on-one interviews we just talked about and focus groups. But, and this is key, they are not the same. They're designed for totally different things, so let's break down when you should use which one. So, when do you want to use a depth interview? Well, they're your best bet when you need pure, unfiltered feedback from one person at a time. They are perfect for something like usability testing, literally watching someone try to use your app or website. And they're absolutely essential if you're talking about sensitive stuff, like personal finances or health issues. You just can't do that in a group. Focus groups, though, are a whole different ballgame. They're all about using the power of the group. You get, say, 6 to 8 people in a room together, and you let the sparks fly. You can start debates, brainstorm new ideas, and just watch how people react to each other's opinions. That group dynamic can bring out issues you would never, ever find talking to people one-on-one. Okay, so here it is, laid out super simple. Look at this table. It really boils it down, right? If you need to avoid peer pressure and get into a really sensitive topic, interviews are the way to go. But if your goal is to brainstorm and see how different ideas bounce off of each other, then you want a focus group. Simple as that. And this right here is the golden rule of all research. If you take away just one thing, let it be this. Don't just pick a method because you've heard of it or it sounds cool. No, you have to start with your goal. What is it exactly that you need to learn? Figure that out first, then pick the tool that's built to give you that specific answer. Okay, last section. Number 5, more powerful research tools. So far, we've talked about interviews and focus groups, but believe me, there's a whole world of other tools out there. So let's expand that toolkit and look at a few more really cool ways to get the answers you need. Surveys. Probably the most common tool out there and also one of the easiest to get wrong. I mean, look at these 7 rules. They seem so simple, right? Talk to the right person, ask the right question, but each one is a hurdle you have to jump over. It's not just about whipping up a few questions. You have to get every single one of these 7 things right to get data that's actually useful. Here's a cool trick. Sometimes your customers don't even know what they want. You can't just ask them directly. That's where these fuzzy front-end methods come in. They're creative ways to get at those hidden needs. So instead of asking a direct question, you ask something open-ended like this. Wouldn't it be wonderful if? That lets them dream a little, and in that dream, they might just reveal the big problem you're meant to solve. Okay, let's make this super concrete with a quick case study. Picture a startup that's designing a new power tool. They've got a classic problem, right? They can add all sorts of bells and whistles, but they can't add everything. So the big question is, which features do customers actually care enough about to pay for? So to figure this out, they used a really powerful technique called conjoint analysis. Now, instead of just asking people, hey, what features do you want? Because everyone will say everything, they force them to make choices. They'd show them different combinations. Like, okay, you can have this powerful motor, but it's more expensive. Or this one with a longer warranty, but it's a bit less powerful. By seeing what people trade off, you learn what they really value. And here's the magic. This is the big insight they uncovered. They didn't have just one type of customer. They had 2 completely different ones. They had the weekend DIYer who basically just wanted something cheap that worked. And then they had the professional contractor who needed raw power and would absolutely pay more to get it. So what did they do? They created a 2-pronged strategy. This research led them straight to a winning plan. Instead of building one tool that was kind of okay for everyone but great for no one, they launched 2 separate product lines. And both were huge successes because they were perfectly tailored to each customer. That is the power of doing your homework. So we've covered a ton of ground here, right? From the big picture data types all the way down to these super specific research tools. But now we're back where we started, with you and with your idea. Look, your idea might be brilliant, but the real question, the one you need to ask yourself right now, is what is the #1 biggest unknown you need to figure out to turn that little spark into a raging fire?